Hi everyone, so today I'm just going to be putting up a short video talking through how we go about installing PetThermoTools, but also critically how we'll install the alphaMELTS for Python source files onto your local machine, so that you can use Python to run MELTS calculations, whether that's fractional crystallization, mantle melting, simple equilibration calculations, it doesn't matter. Now the easiest way to do this is to go to our read docs page, as you can see on the screen here. Now on the left hand side you'll see this getting started section, and the area you want to go to is this installation of alphaMELTS for Python source files over here. Okay. So I'm going to click on that and it's going to open up this page. This is a copy of a Jupyter notebook that I've developed to help that installation process. If you want to download and run the Jupyter notebook yourself, the easiest way to do that is to click on this View in MB Viewer button here, and this will open up this page. Now there's a slight complication in how you go about doing this, but if you click on the button on the right over here, this download notebook, it will go like this. What you actually need to do in here is right click on it or control click, hit save link as. This will open up a Finder window on Mac and hit save. This is going to download the Jupyter notebook onto your machine. You can then open that Jupyter notebook in Jupyter Lab, or as I do, in Visual Studio Code. It's important, and I would suggest saving it in don't save it in downloads like I just did. I would save it in a specific folder in your file system that's dedicated for the MELTS source files. Okay. So once you've done that, once you've downloaded the notebook, we can actually go about how it actually works. So I'm going to open up the notebook that I have, which is here, and I'm running this in Visual Studio Code. Now the first thing to do, if you haven't had Python installed on your machine before, is to install Python. Now we're going to be doing this mostly from a perspective of users that are working on Mac systems, but regardless if you're on Mac or Windows, the easiest way to install Python is to go to this link here and install it through Anaconda distributor. Okay. Once you've done that, once you've installed Anaconda and installed Python, you can then install PetThermoTools into your Python environment using this simple command here, pip install PetThermoTools. This is all you need to do for installing PetThermoTools. That's the only requirement for the PetThermoTools package itself. Installing alphaMELTS for Python source files takes a few extra steps. So let's now go through them. Let's assume you've now run this cell. I'm not going to run it because I already have PetThermoTools installed on my machine. Let's assume you've run this cell. It worked well. It should take probably around 30 seconds. And if it worked well and it's successfully completed, you can then move down onto step 3. So here, as we're doing this for installation for Mac users, there's one extra step we need to consider. If you're a Mac user, before we can install or use the alphaMELTS of Python files, we need to install GSL. We do this using Homebrew. So the easiest way to do this is you click on this link here. Okay. It will open up this page and you'll see this command copied in here. Okay. So what you would do is you would copy to clipboard this command. You would open up a terminal, paste that command into the terminal, and hit return. Once again, I've already done this on my machine, so I'm not going to do it. Okay. Once you've done that, it will print out a series of instructions throughout the installation process. As these instructions come up, you should just be able to respond to them simply as largely yes/no questions. Respond to them as they appear. Once that is finished, in the terminal, type brew install GSL and hit return. Okay. In early versions of PetThermoTools and alphaMELTS for Python, there were some issues with this step, but it seems to now be all kind of polished out, so don't worry too much about the extra information written in this section down here. So hopefully that step is nice and easy, and you're able to do it successfully. If you have done that successfully and everything seems to run well, then you can move on to the next step slightly further down here. Okay. And so the first thing we're going to do, we've already done point 1, install PetThermoTools via PyPy. This is the pip install step that we've seen above. The next thing we want to do is actually import PetThermoTools into our Python environment here. So we're going to import PetThermoTools and give it the code PTT. We can also check the version of PetThermoTools that we're importing using this command here. So I'm going to run this cell. I'm going to run import PetThermoTools as PTT. I'm actually going to restart the kernel and run it again so that you can see the initial message that would pop up the first time I import this package. So here, now I've restarted the kernel and importing this for the first time into this environment, you can see that it pops up a message. So it will print the version 0.2.52, but it will also print this message. And when we import PetThermoTools, it will search for the alphaMELTS for Python source files. If these are on the Python path, absolutely no issue whatsoever. PetThermoTools now knows it can run MELTS calculations. If it's not on the Python path, but they are located somewhere on your machine, you can add them in to your Python path in any Python environment by simply typing import sys and then sys.path.append, and in the quote marks here, you would replace this with the path to those alphaMELTS for Python source files. Specifically, we're looking for the location of the MELTS dynamic.py file in your path or file location file environment. Okay. We're not going to do that just yet, but it is how, if you imported PetThermoTools into Python and that message popped up and you'd already gone through these steps, this is how you would go and add those alphaMELTS for Python source files to your Python path in that particular Jupyter notebook. Okay. As you're a Mac user, if you're watching this video, that shouldn't actually be necessary. Because in this next cell down here, what we do is we have a simple function, so PTT is PetThermoTools, we have a simple function called install alphaMELTS. And I'm going to set admin equals to true. This seems to always work on Mac computers. If anyone has an issue with it, please let me know. What admin equals to true does is, well, the install alphaMELTS function, what that is going to do is going to locate the alphaMELTS for Python source files. It's going to locate them from this GitHub page here. And so actually I will go to the correct page. It will locate them from the alphaMELTS GitHub repository. If we go to releases, it is actually this release here, version 2.3.1, which has these different alphaMELTS app, alphaMELTS for MATLAB, and alphaMELTS for Python zip files. What this install alphaMELTS command or function will do is it will locate the correct zip file for your machine. So here we're working on MacOS, so it will locate this one here. It will download this zip file, extract it in the location that it's downloaded, and the final thing it will do if admin is equal to true is it will add it to your Python path, meaning that every time you open Python, in this case for me the Python 3.11, okay, every time I open Python and run any calculation, the alphaMELTS for Python source code will be on that Python path. Okay. So all I need to do is run this cell. It might take a few seconds, but it should, hopefully, if everything works well, will print this message of download and extraction of alphaMELTS for Python files is successful. Okay. What it will also have done here, you may have just noticed these two files just popped up. So what it does is it downloads this zip file in the location where the installation script is located. Okay, so it will download the alphaMELTS Pi 2.3.1 MacOS.zip file. It will then extract the things within that zip file, and here you can see I have the MELTS dynamic.py file. That's the key one that I kind of wanted to make sure is on the Python path. By saying admin equals to true, this means that those files are always on the Python path. Now, what we can do here is we can test that installation work correctly. So if it worked correctly, then my system should know where MELTS dynamic is. Okay, this is MELTS dynamic.py, and we're going to import MELTS dynamic from this file. In doing so, we can also check the version 2.3. We can also initiate a MELTS dynamic run. So in this case, we'll be setting up a calculation mode to write out MELTS version 1.0.2 and check the version once again. And in this case, it should print 2.3.1 beta. Okay. And if all of that has worked correctly, there is one more test that you can do to make sure that the alphaMELTS Python files are correctly installed on your machine. This is only available from version 0.2.53 and later. But what you can do, and I've included it in this here, is you can run this function ptt.test alphaMELTS. And what this is going to do is actually going to run a simple fractional crystallization model and print the composition of the liquids produced during that fractional crystallization calculation. So actually what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to restart the kernel, so I make sure I have no kind of memory of the other calculations or other imports that I've done so far in this notebook. I am then going to add a cell where I import PetThermoTools just above this calculation. I'm going to run that. So PetThermoTools is imported back into this Python environment, and I'm going to run this test. Okay, and you're going to see a huge number of calculation messages being printed from this calculation below, showing that we're accessing the MELTS files and running thermodynamic calculations. And most notebooks will actually suppress these outputs because they are huge and they seem to scroll on forever and ever and ever. Okay. But in this case, it's quite a nice test to show that the calculations are running correctly. And what this test does do, if you go all the way to the bottom of here, you'll see the composition of the liquid at each step of the model is printed in this case. You can see the composition, the silica content of the liquid, all the way through to the CO2 content and actually the ion redox state of this liquid as well. And so if that prints correctly, then it means that alphaMELTS or Python files are installed correctly on your device, and they are ready to be used in any kind of MELTS calculations that you want to do through PetThermoTools.